Well, hello, folks out there in YouTube land. Got a big show lined up for you. Let's get right into it. All right, folks, took a day off yesterday, but let's just say I'm back.
People keep asking if I'm back, and I haven't really had an answer. But now, yeah, I'm thinking I'm back.
Yeah, definitely. And let's get into these stories. There is a big story out there that Ryan Day possibly cussed out a director at Ohio State. We're going to get all into that. We're also going to talk about Les Miles suing LSU. So we've got two big stories. Let's get into it. All right, folks, now when it comes to Ryan Day, there's a story out there. It's been all over the news that one of his recruiting directors, actually the most important one, actually a very popular one, Aaron Dunston, was actually cursed out, allegedly, by Ryan Day. Now, understand Ohio State had already lost their running backs coach, which is Tony Alford. So I'm sure he wasn't happy about that either. Now, you got to understand the thing about Ohio State and Michigan. This is not your ordinary rivalry. This thing is deep and it's vicious. And Michigan has beaten Ohio State the last 3 years. And many people think Connor Stalions had a lot to do with that because if you'll remember, they went from winning about 69% of their games to 91% of their games when Connor showed up, including now a national title. Now, everybody found out about that the last 5 or 6 games, so they didn't have the advantage of everybody's signs and the other team not knowing it. But they circled the wagons and they won a national title.
It's got to be America's team.
Now, of course, Connor Stalions stepped down, retired, resigned, whatever you want to say. And then Jim Harbaugh pretty much took off for the NFL because he knew the NCAA was going to lay the hammer down.
Brave Sir Robin ran away. No! Bravely ran away, away.
I didn't.
Yeah, brave Sir Harbaugh took off. But now there is the fallout, and that's that Ryan Day's under unbelievable pressure. He's got a team this year that is as loaded as any team I've ever seen. It is chopped, filled with 5 stars. And everybody's expecting, at the very worst, beat Michigan, reach the playoffs. That's the bare minimum that he needs to do. And a lot of people are wanting a championship, which makes all the sense in the world. They're loaded, and they've got a schedule that can allow that. But he's already had his second employee leave for his nemesis, which is Michigan, and it appears he might have lost his temper. Let's get into this story. This is on Barstool Sports. It says people are saying that Ryan Day cussed out the recruiting director, leaving his staff as she told him she was going to Michigan. And this is by a guy that goes by the name of Ohio's Tate. So probably somebody that's a little bit partial to Ohio State. So this is kind of where I wanted to get this from because I figured it'd probably be the best take out there because, you know, unless you're there, you don't know for sure. And here you see where this young lady said Ohio State's absolute rock star of recruiting who just got promoted to assistant AD is leaving to become Michigan's director of operations. There she is with the mascot. And this writer said, I've made my point loud and clear on how I feel about Aaron Dunston as well as Tony Alford leaving Ohio State for Michigan, but it's not just where she left for. Even though it's all I needed to hear, it's how and when she left. She's the assistant athletic director for football recruiting, and we're in the middle of official visits. This is literally the most important time for her position, and she left Ohio State high and dry. So I kind of figured this guy would not be happy about this. This is June, which has become the most important time for recruiting. For my team, the VOLS, we've had like 4 or 5 stars in there the last 2 weekends. So it's huge, and I'm sure Ohio State's got even more 5 stars at their school. And she was a very important person there in recruiting, needless to say. And he says here, she knew damn well what the reaction would be if she talked to or interviewed for a position at Michigan, so she kept it quiet, and then she blindsided Ryan Day and the entire staff by walking into his office in the midst of a monster recruiting time for the program and told him, hey, I've accepted a position at Michigan, and I'm starting this week. Now, this guy was not happy. He says she knew exactly what she was doing, keeping her plan behind the backs of the very people she worked with. That's because, yeah, if you'd have gone in there and said, hey, I'm taking an interview with Michigan, she'd have probably gotten fired right then and there. They'd have flipped out. So I kind of understand that. Says I wouldn't put it past her, the scumbags in Ann Arbor. This guy is not an arbiter of fairness when it comes to Michigan. He can't stand them. That's why I thought this would be interesting. Says, anyways, I wouldn't do this from a message board unless I had some information that I found to be pertinent. The word on the street is that Ryan Day wasn't too kind in his wishes on Erin's future endeavors. He said, cussed her out is subjective. Did Ryan Day chase her down the hall telling her she's a dumb B word as she carried her crap out? He said, come on now, let's not paint that narrative. But he said, I would love that. But did he thank her for her services in Columbus? He said, no, I think it's safe to say that he didn't. He said, I also think it's safe to say that a get the F out of my office as he calls security to escort her from the building is likely what happened. I'd say that's exactly what happened. I don't think he necessarily cussed her out personally, but he probably used some expletives to address her general direction. And there's the door. And oh, by the way, I'm bringing in security because I don't trust you anymore.
I fart in your general direction.
So, yeah, it sounds like he was very angry. And when it comes to leave, if she'd have gone somewhere else, he would have dealt with it. But Michigan, that's just, it's too close. And that also tells you the pressure he's under. He's really feeling it right now. He's under a microscope, and it's starting to get to him. Because when you blow up like that, it just, had he come off a national title, I don't think he'd be that upset. He's feeling it, and it's understandable because there is a percentage, not the majority, but there's a loud minority that's very upset with him, and they're tired of losing. And while I do not blame him certainly for the first 2 losses to Michigan, and the third one was less than a score, and it was at Michigan. So I cut Ryan Day some slack, I really do. But, a lot of people think he was born on third base by taking over the Ohio State team, which is, there's probably some truth to that. It's a plum position to have. So based on the articles that I've read, I think he definitely lost his cool.
Hallelujah! Holy shit! Where's the Tylenol?
But I don't think he directly cursed her. I just don't see him doing that. But did he curse while directing her out? That I believe. That I could see. And you got to understand, too, I was at UT in the 80s. And in the 1980s, a coach using profanity was a Tuesday. Okay, that's just how it was. Now, I played on the golf team, so our coach, Coach Malarkey, he didn't use a lot of curse words. That wasn't, it was golf. But on the football team, that was probably not an abnormal thing at all. As a matter of fact, I would have fully expected it, and the players wouldn't have thought twice about it. But in 2024, you got to be careful because people freak out about that stuff these days. We are in a very sensitive time, and any little thing can set folks off, especially on social media. Because, look, you would have never heard about it in the 1980s. You didn't have Twitter and Facebook and YouTube and all that kind of stuff. It was just somebody saying something. So, anyway, I did want to cover this, and it does sound like the pressure is really ratcheting up at Ohio State. And we'll be watching this through the season. I don't think Ohio State's going to struggle during the season at all. I really don't. And I do think they'll beat Michigan. And this story will become not a big deal. But anyway, it does show you that it's intense up there. Anyway, now let's get into Les Miles and his lawsuit against LSU and others. Now, this lawsuit stems from the fact that Les Miles had 37 wins vacated by the NCAA, and it was an agreement between LSU and the infractions department of the NCAA. And what this has done, it's dropped him below 600 so that he's not eligible for the Hall of Fame. So let's get into this case. And this is on footballscoop.com, which is one of my favorite sites. Talks about how now he's facing long odds to reach the College Football Hall of Fame. The 37 wins that were accrued from 2012 to 2015. He called it an irrational and unfair self-inflicted punishment by LSU. And it dropped him from 145 and 73 to 108 and 73, which is now .597, and that's too low. You've got to be at least 600 to reach the College Football Hall of Fame ballot. And they vacated the wins last June, so this just happened. It was an investigation that found former Tigers offensive lineman Fidel Alexander's father was paid $180,000 from embezzled funds from a hospital while his son attended LSU, according to this report. It was 2012 through 2015, and they just now settled this? Jeez. Man, that just shows you how long the NCAA does these things. This was 10 years ago, and they're just now settling it. That's amazing. It says LSU's decision was part of a negotiated settlement through the NCAA Independent Accountability Resolution Panel in a case that was also focused on former LSU basketball coach Will Wade. You'll remember him because he's the guy that was recorded on the phone talking about an offer he made a player, and he called it a strong-ass offer. So that was part of this. They also implemented scholarship reductions and a postseason ban in 2020 due to the Alexander case. So if they did that in 2020, why are they just now, in June, last June, stemming? Geez, that's a lot of negotiating. Miles won a national championship at LSU, 2 SEC titles, and 3 SEC West crowns, which would make him a shoo-in for inclusion. And you'll remember, he was the Mad Hatter. This is a guy that would go on fourth down under any circumstances. He would try anything, and it usually worked at LSU, which also shows you how easy it is to win a national title at LSU. Ed Ogeron won one there, and that guy is very limited. There's so much talent in Louisiana, and you've got the whole state to yourself. So there have been a lot of titles won there by coaches that weren't the best. Now, Saban won one there. He was great. But the other two guys, not so much. Says the irony of the lawsuit is that Miles is no guarantee to reach the College Football Hall of Fame. There's some other issues here. First of all, you got to be nominated, and there's no school looking to nominate him currently. Even though he coached well at LSU, his other stops were not that good. And the Jayhawks, the Kansas Jayhawks, which was his last stop, he was 3-18. The other issue is you must have proven yourself worthy as a citizen, carrying the ideals of football forward into his relations with his community and his fellow man with love of his country, etc. They would said the honors court would consider allegations of improper behavior with an LSU athletics employee that led to the school to deliberately fire him in 2013. Those allegations led to his firing at Kansas, and he's not coached since his since his ouster at Kansas. Now, I don't know if that was ever proven or not, but anyway, that has obviously haunted him as well. So this doesn't look too good for Les Miles, as far as I can see. It was a negotiated settlement with the NCAA. They're probably not going to back off of that. Then he's got to be nominated, and then he's got the other skeleton in the closet. So I don't think this is going to work for him, but look, he wants to get in the Hall of Fame. You know, his record, if you add back the vacated wins, is good enough. And he's won a national title, and he's won the SEC a couple times. So, I mean, it's good enough, but I don't think he's going to make it. Not with those vacated wins and not with some other things. So, anyway, that's just an update on that lawsuit. It surprises me, but the guy's like 70 years old, and he really wants it. So, you know, is what it is. We'll see how it plays out, but I don't like his chances. And my Vols are playing tomorrow. We're either going to be playing North Carolina or we're going to be playing Florida State. And I actually talked to a Florida State guy last night. May do a show with him, we'll see. And that's the double fries, no slaw guy, TJ. Some of you may know him. He's got a couple of different channels. And that's if FSU wins, who I think that's who we'll end up playing. I think FSU will probably beat North Carolina, but look, it's baseball. You never know. It's the most fickle sport there is. But anyway, we're going to be playing tomorrow, I believe, at, 1 p.m. I don't like those early games. I like them in the evening. Wednesday at 1 p.m. But that might actually work out pretty good for me now that I think about it. And then Texas A&M advanced, and they're going to be playing either Kentucky or Florida. So there's already a couple teams out, and that's Virginia and NC State. So a couple of the ACC schools are already out. And I think the SEC's 4-0 against the ACC so far, which is kind of surprising to me. Baseball is so fickle, you would think it'd fall a little different than that. But so far, the SEC's been dominant. But that does not necessarily mean it will continue that way. Anyway, so we'll see how this plays out. And if you like this content, hit that like button. Lets me know to continue to cover all these big sports stories. If you've not subscribed, hit this little button right here. Won't cost you a dime, and it helps me out. I would certainly appreciate it.
Come on. Come on.
Oh, okay. Yeah, okay, sure.
And right over here is the most recent video YouTube thinks you'll enjoy. And we'll see you next time on Sports Talk Jay.